Yeah, everyone, yeah, you are welcome to my platform, Timo Starboy Reality Talk TV. I greet you at your location time. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And for those people who have already sleeping, good night. Yeah, you are welcome. Welcome to my platform, Timo Starboy Channel Blogs. Today we want to update you on the Supreme Court justice. The judges that they are in the Supreme Court. All these our lawmakers and the judges, they are all criminal. They are not making law. They are only making a criminal law. They are all criminal, making a criminal law. So that is why you can never get any justice. You can never get any justice in the first place because they are all criminal. They have a criminal activities. They have a skeletons in their cupboard and they cannot say the truth. They cannot say the truth. They cannot tell the truth to the sitting president that what you are doing is a wrongdoing. So because they are all in the same caucus, they are all in the same group, they are all in the same level. So let me play you this video. Yeah, and to start with. So you will hear from these two gentlemen from Arise Television, yeah, Prime News. So let's hear from Charles. Okay.
Outset, a moment of extraordinary legal history is imminent in Nigeria as the Supreme Court prepares to deliver judgment tomorrow, Thursday, on the opposition's challenge to the 2023 presidential election result, just 3 days after it began hearing the appeal. President Bola Tinubu was declared the winner of that ballot, but his main opponents, Atiku Abubakar of the PDP and Peter Obi of the Labour Party, want Nigeria's highest courts to overturn the judgment of the Election Petitions Tribunal, which upheld Mr. Tinubu's victory. The result of that election and the subsequent legal challenge have heightened tensions in Nigeria, polarizing the country along political and ethnic lines. If the Supreme Court upholds the decision of the tribunal, it will be following a pattern seen in previous ballots in Nigeria, where a presidential election result has never been overturned.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys.
Thoughts on this and other issues of the day. I'm joined now in the studio by our guest commentators, the public policy analyst, Chibuzo Kereke, and the policy strategist, political commentator, and group CEO of the global investment and trade company, Baba Yusuf. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let me come to you first, Chibuzo. It's been a fairly tortuous path. But here we are on the eve of what could be a moment of extraordinary legal history in Nigeria. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think that, yes, it's a historic moment for the country, and both the international community and Nigerians are expectant, especially the political parties. Those in the opposition, they want the thing to be upturned, and of course the ruling party wants the Supreme Court to reaffirm the pronouncement of the court of the appeal court. But I think that the purpose of law and the courts is for justice. So my expectation is for the Supreme Court to do justice across all the issues that are played, because a lot is at stake. As you rightly mentioned, Nigeria is polarized at the moment across religious, ethnic, and political lines. So only justice can bring us together.
Yes.
And what that justice would be is what will then leave for the justices of the Supreme Court to determine. And in doing that, they have to look at the letters and the spirit of the law and the circumstances under, consideration, because it's key. And when people expect that, since inception we have not been able to obtain any election, is it going to be tomorrow? This is not a football match, a competition. A lot is at stake right here. So I think that justice is the right thing to be done by the Supreme Court tomorrow in every respect. And they should put everything in consideration. I mean, when yesterday also, we just, why even Arise TV and others were waiting for the court in London to deliver judgment, and then they simply sent an email, to the people, and everybody took it. Even the British and every other didn't say, since you people didn't come and see it openly, something is wrong with this journey. So that public trust is critical, and the judiciary needs to restore public trust and confidence in the system.
That's a very good point. And Baba Yusuf, of course, you've been here. We've talked about this innumerable times. The controversy, the disputation around all of this. What are your thoughts?
Well, tomorrow will be a watershed in the political history in Nigeria, indeed in the history of Nigeria, not just political history, because the politics is impacting everything, social, economic, unity, and everything. So we are all looking forward to tomorrow. And like Chubuzo said, we look forward to justice.
Justice, of course, depends on who you are.
But then, I mean, where there is justice, there's hardly an argument, because incontrovertibly, the delivery of the judgment will give it a semblance of balance. And of course, 100% people will not align to it, but largely it is either justice is done or it is seemingly done. Whatever it is, we look forward to that. And then importantly, tomorrow will set a precedence, in the history of this country legally, because the outcome of the election coming from the highest court of instance in this country would certainly set a precedent as a case law going forward with regards to
whichever way it goes
with regards to presidential election matter. And indeed it will be a yardstick also down to the subnationals. So that is why it is so important for us. Of course, the international community also are watching to see how far or how well the judiciary want to hold its own at this critical moment.
Of course, a lot of this, beyond the very important points that Baba Yusuf made about the world watching and the rest of it, and the points that you made about expectations of justice, the court is fairly limited in the sense that it has to look at the case that was brought up and the strictures around the case that was brought up from the appeals court to them. So that's a fairly circumscribed thing as far as the court is concerned. But obviously, the case is under the Supreme Court's judicial consideration, as we've said over and over again. So we've got to be circumspect. In that regard, what are the prognostications in terms of the different scenarios that could play out tomorrow?
Well, I think it has been also well captured. If you look at it, they have the option to remit the case back to the Court of Appeal due to the new evidence that the opposition is seeking for them to admit. So they can actually admit that, like they have done in the past, and look at it and then dispense justice. So, but what Nigerians are expecting, and I agree with Yusuf, is that in the process of delivering justice or adjudication, you have to be transparent, you have to be accountable, you have to follow the law, irrespective of pressure or whatever is the issue, because the judiciary is very important to sustenance of democracy. And even after the case, right, like it is said, after the Supreme Court, the next person to appeal to is God. But even the Supreme Court justices are answerable to God. So it's important that whatever they are doing is done according to law, according to the Constitution. They don't create new laws per se. They set precedents by interpreting the law and seeking the legislative intention of the framers of the Constitution. So it could, they have made their prayers, the final addresses. It could go either way, but we have a country to develop and to build. Right, so whoever emerges victorious tomorrow will look forward to building in Nigeria, because without the country, you won't talk about presidency.
That's a very good point. And Baba Yusuf, I mean, it could end up being sort of an earth-shattering conclusion, a sort of really, stormy legal and political climax, as both of you have hinted. But it could also be an anticlimax in the sense that, as the previous guest suggested, I mean, it could just be a ruling on the new evidence that Atiku was trying to introduce, which, as I said, may make it something of an anticlimax, and then the process gets drawn out again.
Yes.
Although they said they would look at it that is, they'd look at everything as a whole rather than separating them,
Yeah, very good point. I think what will happen is the Supreme Court will have to apply strategy and wisdom.
You mean what you think will happen?
I think will happen,
right.
Because most likely that is what will happen, because if you look at section 24 subsection 2A with regards to the timeline of exhausting the litigation process, we're already getting there. So I reckon, in my opinion, most likely they will try to tie up things before that timeline elapses, which will now create another legal question and throw up a lot of issues.
That's a good point.
So I think in my opinion, they will try to do that. However the case may be, like you said, there is a process to follow. And if it is what it is that justice has to be done, for example, in the scenario of referring the matter back to the court of first instance, in the case of the presidential election matters, then so be it. And at the end of the day, what is important is for justice to be done.
Yeah. That's a very important thing. And on that note, let's leave the Supreme Court justices to do what they're paid to do. I mean, paid as in salaried work, not any, so before somebody misinterprets what I'm talking about. Let's turn to the other rather topical issue at the moment in Nigeria, which has to do with Nigeria's lawmakers, and that's the issue of the cost of governance. The National Assembly, we're told, is procuring Prado SUVs worth 130 million naira each, or more or less, I don't know, for each lawmaker. How do you feel about that, coming at a time when Nigeria is grappling with severe economic hardship?
Well, I will respond in this manner. First, in terms of cost of governance, in terms of we have the executive, we have the legislature, we have the judiciary. And Nigeria has been, involved in a long time of military incursions and military rule. So the idea of legislature and democratization is something that people are just getting to embrace. And therefore, it is people look at it even through the executive and other engagement to suppress the legislature. As right now in Nigeria, the youngest arm of government, and yet the most important arm that can help us sustain democracy. Now, if you look at this scenario, we don't have outright laws that regulate some of these things. Most of them are by circulars and administrative, directives. And the question we have to ask is to examine, the relevance of and importance of some of these issues. Ordinarily, in the Constitution, for instance, for you to be a minister, your qualification is to be House of Rep member. Now, all the 48 ministers, even before arriving their offices, already have their SUVs and escorts, there, and the number of vehicles they are to use as for operational activities are not even determined by anybody. It's just within their jurisdiction to do so. But understandably, the Legislative Assembly is a representative of the people. I'm a legislative advocate, and I'm worried about any arrangement that tends to continue to dwarf the capacity of the National Assembly to implement oversight functions. And because you cannot, if you're hungry, you cannot oversight a rich man. So what is going on now is that if we try to, incapacitate the National Assembly, make sure that they are trekking, with I'm not saying they should buy a car of 150 million or what have you, but if we want to address issue of logistics for operational logistics, we have to do it in the entire arms of government.
So basically you agree with
I agree that they should have operational vehicles, but we can look at the value and governance system around this and ensure that it is the same policy for everybody, rather than us raising our voice against NAS and then abandoning the huge cost being expended in the executive and other. Also, the National Assembly, why they are being called out is that they actually have the power to legislate and to make appropriations. So they have to also look at a kind of legal framework that will tackle this issue, because every 4 years it keeps coming up. And it happens every other 4 years.
I'm going to come to you in a minute to get your take on this, but we have a clip from a senator who's addressing the same issue. Let's take a listen.
I'm sure you know we have a Department of Procurement in the National Assembly. They did a comparative analysis of cost,
Listen to this most
of durability,
this senator,
and they came up with suggestions.
with stupid talk.
And we took their suggestions. So that a senator,
With a stupid idea.
this is the guy that they approved a Land Cruiser for us, and somebody that is a minister.
Look
You
at
have
him.
more than 6, maybe 3 Land Cruiser,
Look at his
Prado,
face.
and other vehicle in their convoy,
That is his name.
and you are not asking them questions. Please spare us a bit.
See,
And this vehicle that you take, go to Nigerian roads today.
gullible people.
If I go home once to my senatorial district, I come back spending a lot on my vehicle because our roads are bad.
Hear what he's saying.
And
The road is
the
bad.
issue of buying vehicles for National Assembly,
Who spoiled the road?
it's a recurring decimal. Every
Look at
assembly,
him.
it will always come up. We should at least let them have a little.
These are the gullible Senate. Your Senate in Nigeria.
If you go to state
They are squandering your money.
houses of assembly today,
The national cake
Check
supposed to be for me and you.
most of them before
They are the ones squandering it. They are eating it alone.
Governors will have bought vehicles
See their
waiting for
faces?
them.
These are faces.
Even local government chairman. I know the vehicle my local government chairman is using.
Look at what he's saying.
So why National Assembly alone?
Look at what he's saying.
Amazon は支えていき
Sorry
ます。
guys.
毎日をより良くしようとする人たち。
Look at what your senator is saying, for God's sake. Gullible people. Yeah? Is this a human being?
Addressing that same
As
issue.
the chairman Senate committee on
Is this
So let me
a
come to
good
you,
leader?
Brother Yusuf. I mean, I think there is some reason that when you listen to some of this, to what they're saying and to what
Animal in a
the problem
skin.
I have and a lot of people
Animal in a skin
why is
human.
Nigeria spending that amount of money buying cars from Japan and propping up the Japanese economy when cars are made in Nigeria? I mean, if they came out and they said, we believe in Buy Nigeria, we're trying to grow this economy and we're going to buy innocent vehicles and that money will stay in Nigeria, people would support it, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Brilliant analogy, Charles. And to cap it to that, I listened to that press conference by a distinguished senator. Prelude to that, the snippets were coming out. And to be honest, as a Nigerian, I'm quite disappointed.
Me too.
Like Chibuzo said, the legislative arm is
Very
younger, but it's
disappointment.
supposed to be the strongest, and it's supposed to be actually the conscience of this government.
Because it's the oversight. It's got
Absolutely,
oversight
it's supposed to be
functions.
the conscience of our polity. It's supposed to be what you call the cruise control of our policy. Now, this bric-a-brac about you have so I should have it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, with due respect, Charles. This country is in a mess. We are in a serious situation. And we have leaders. Every single member of the National Assembly is a leader by his own right. They paid their dues. Now, the squabbles about cars or vehicles, to my mind, belittles that, arm of government.
Exactly.
And in fairness,
They are all
the
criminals.
entire, polity itself reeks of
All
this
the lawmakers, they are
jamboree
criminals.
scenario. That is an insult to the sensitivities and sensibilities of Nigerians at this critical moment. I'm not isolating the legislature in this case, but we are speaking to the moment. And I have people that have heard me, I've spoken and I have written about the cost of governance, even from the executive side, But speaking to this particular issue, I was expecting the legislature to be the constructive disruptor, if you like, to bring sanity to this from the point of view of sacrifice and service. Like Chubuzo said, why should it be a Land Cruiser of 160 million? About, if you do a quick arithmetic, it's about 54 billion.
In this
If you take
recession
54
time.
billion now to throw it into any sector,
In this
in a
recession time.
country where over 140 million of us that are 200 million are declared multidimensionally poor, it presupposes that every
Just
member
imagine.
in the National Assembly
Criminal
has
people, criminal
multidimensionally
mind.
poor people he or she is represented. So I felt there should be some kind of circumspection and reflection in dealing with what I consider an entitlement to them to do their job, but to do it in a way and manner that they don't belittle the office. And I think also the executive should lead in that regard by example. What we are seeing today does not reflect what is going on in the country.
Okay. On that note, I want to thank you, Baba Yusuf, who is a policy strategist, political commentator, and group CEO of the Global Investment and Trade Company, and of course Chibuzo Kereke, who's a public policy analyst. Thank you very much indeed. Before we go, I wanted to buy a little bit of time to draw this to your attention. Dr. Sam Amadi, who is an Arise News analyst, recently wrote an article in This Day newspaper titled The Audacity of Corruption. In it, he talked about the exceptionalism of Nigerian corruption, which can be measured by the number of manifestly corrupt politicians who occupy high political offices in Nigeria and who, in spite of their corruption, have bright political futures. They never had their ways, they never hid their ways en route to the top, but got to the top notwithstanding the fact that people know they are criminally corrupt. In other words, corruption is not just pervasive, it is respectable and admired. And he quotes Alex Perry, a Newsweek columnist, who said that Nigeria's rulers have often been indistinguishable from its criminals. And he cites the case of a former Nigerian assistant inspector of police who became a senator and who stood in the legislative chamber and marveled at so many so-called distinguished senators making deals and laws to cater to themselves, and said he never knew he'd meet so many people he prosecuted and put in jail as a police officer in the Senate chamber. Absolutely damning, isn't it? That's it.
So, I leave you for this word, I leave you to put your own suggestion. These our lawmakers, they are all corruptive lawmakers. They are all corruptive leaders. So, we should wipe them away. So, leave your suggestion below. So, thank you for today. So, tomorrow, we'll bring you another update. How it's going on in our Supreme Court. The judges, we don't rely on them. We don't know what they are doing. We don't know their thinking. They are all corrupt judges and our lawmakers. All what they intend to do is to squander the money the national cake for me and you. They just want to be eating it alone with their family. And God will, He will not receive all of them, you know, He will deny them. He will deny all of them. So, thank you for watching once again. So, Timo Starboy Channel Blogs on Facebook, on YouTube, Timo Starboy Reality Talk TV, on Twitter at Timothy Oladipo 1. Thank you. Have a lovely night. Bye.